Hi, I'm Barry Sahazian. This video is about crossing the strings to play arpeggios. So what I'm doing here is I'm showing you how to play a major triad, but going up from the root, the third, and the fifth, inversions of the arpeggios. I'd like to briefly summarize what I'm going to cover on this video. It's about crossing the strings using triads. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to be using combinations of 2 fingers at a time on the left hand, 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 4. I'm going to be showing you triads in 3 positions. In the root position, the first inversion, and the second inversion. In other words, from the root, from the third, and from the fifth. Root position, first inversion, and second inversion. Okay, I'd also like to point out there's always an interval of a fourth in major and minor triads. That can become a challenge sometime, and by using fretting as opposed to barring, you'll never have a problem. So I'm going to start with root position. So what I'm doing here to cross the strings is I'm using my third and fourth finger from the fifth to the root, as opposed to barring, which is difficult and uncomfortable to me anyway. You can either use your baby finger or your ring finger, but I don't use that at all. It's always, anytime there's a fourth, cross the strings using one of the 3 combinations of 2 fingers on your left hand. So let me go over the other 2. That was 3 and 4. Now what use can you have for fingers 2 and 3? The same C triad starting from the fifth. How else could you play that with a bar? Something like that? To me, that's very uncomfortable and difficult. So we've covered 3 and 4, and we've done 2 and 3. Now, what use can you have for fingers 1 and 2? That would be playing the fifth to the root to the third with a stretch. In this case, barring that would be okay. But still, it leaves the, if you have to play a line like that, using the bar, a lot of strength and effort to do that as opposed to fingering. So I showed you the use for the triad was fingers 3 and 4 on the root position. Let's move on to the first and second inversions and going across the neck and adding pivots and other little technique. So we already have from the root. So now we're going to add going up from the third, and there's going to be a pivot in this string crossing, a new approach. So you have, and the pivot is when you reach the fifth and you're using your baby finger, you shift over to your index. And that puts you in the fifth position. Now you can play from the third, which is right here. Now I'd like to show you another way to approach that that's a little simpler, because that's a little bit complicated and difficult, but well worth the effort if you want to put it in to learn to use that pivot type of approach on the string crossing. So we're going to take it and we're going to play it from the C here on the 8th fret, and which is actually the 7th position, and we're going to stay in position, and it allows you to play a little faster. And just another way, if you just happen to be on that part of the neck and you want to do a run using an arpeggio. So that's basically the first string crossing approach I used on the C from down there. And so, and now you start from the third, and you still use your ring finger and baby finger to hit from the fifth to the root here. And you can go a little faster with this one. It's a little easier to play. I'll go over both of them again. You have the first one, which includes the pivot. That's difficult. A little easier to play it in position from the 8th fret C. Okay, now that we've completed the root position and the first inversion, we're working on the second inversion. So I'm going to go through slowly the root position and the first inversion. I'll stop and then I'll show you how I approach the second inversion. That's the root position. Now the first inversion, starting from the third. Okay, we're going to stop right there, and I'm going to save my position. I am where I stopped. So I'm sort of like this. So the logical thing would be to use my ring finger and go over here. So I was over here, last note of this first inversion triad, and then I just go over there with my ring finger. Then I cross the strings by landing my baby finger on the next string, which is a C, 10th fret of the D string, and then I go to the E, the third of the triad, with my index finger, and then the fifth. Okay, I'm going to take it from the first inversion to the second inversion. Now we've played all three inversions of the C triad. Root position, first inversion, second inversion, from the root, from the third, and from the fifth. So let's go start an octave higher at the root position again, which would be right here. Now there's a couple of stretches involved here, but it would be worthy to learn them, even though the first stretch is 2 whole steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets, and the second one is 6 frets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That stretch isn't as bad as it looks, really, and it would be a great thing to add to your toolbox, because this kind of a stretch really helps out getting across the neck and playing a lot of different lines, as opposed to being restricted to just position playing, which is good too. But I love those big stretches. You can get all over the neck real quick with a lot less effort. I'm going to go onto the first position, second octave. Now this position isn't going to work for Fender players who only have an E flat, their highest note. That doesn't stop you from playing this in the key of B flat or B or any note below C all the way down to E and playing that. So you really have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 keys that you could play, 5 inversions actually. So before I go any further, we wound up playing, which is the root position, an octave higher than the original one we started on. So we're going to need to go to the third, which is right here, the beginning of the first inversion, C triad, an octave higher. So this one is got some hairy stretches going down. So you're going to have to play, and then play up 4 frets with your second finger. So that's a little bit of a stretch, but and then we pivot and cross the strings by hitting from the middle finger over to the next string to the index finger. Now you see you can stretch over and play that third way up high. Now watch when I do this how I pivot. Okay, so now I sort of move my hand over there, my wrist, and by doing that, I'm right over the third. I don't even have to really stretch, especially up high here. Notice that movement there? down the same way I went up, and I'd like to go through that too, because descending the line is important as well. You don't want to only know how to ascend. So let's cover that. We'll start with the forbidden non-fender position with the E natural up here. Okay, I'll go through it and explain it little by little. So the first one, baby finger, and then cross the strings by going from finger 1 to finger 2, and then you have to stretch over a bit. And then that big stretch from the C to the G. And then root position. First position. And root position. Okay, over at my Patreon page, you can get the full sheet in that, so you can look at everything at once. And I'm going to add some play-alongs too there. I'm going to add slow and fast play-alongs, so you might want to drop by there and grab those, download them, and work at this stuff. And you will not regret this, because triads are everywhere and they always work perfectly. And it's a nice, safe way to go. And as you progress in your playing, you'll find that a triad is a great substitution a lot of times. If you're on a minor chord, you can start a triad on the minor third, or on a major 7 chord, you can play a major 7th on the 5th degree, which gives you your 5th, your major 7th, and 9. And a lot of things can happen just using triads. Not that I recommend using them exclusively, but it's one of the greatest tools is one of the great tools you should have in your toolbox. Anyway, I thank you for stopping by, and I hope to see you at the next video, and work this stuff out. You won't regret it, I'm telling you.